open.
Webster unsealed the plastic pouch with forceful contempt. He was exhausted, but the boss had asked him and Serrano to show at HQ. "How long do we have? 5 minutes? 15? "I've forgotten," Serrano asked, visibly sharing Webster's frustration. 15, he answered. "Then the pass card goes bad. We'll be through the checkpoint in less than 2. "I'm gonna find the booth this time. Give Millington a chance to repeat what he said the other day to my face." "You'll never find it, and you're not authorized for entry." "Who says I won't find it and find a way in? All these checkpoints and elevators have to end at some point. How deep does this place go?" "Deep, and the whole thing is a big maze," Webster coolly replied, then quipped, "You're not having fun, are you?" "It's only my second time at the shed, and all I got to see before were some old cabinets and ancient desks." "That's all there is, LT. That's all the shed is." The pair walked through a door into a small chamber just big enough for both of them. The door sealed, and that was that. They were trapped in there. Webster held up his plastic badge against the two-way mirror set into one wall. An intercom sounded from under the carpet. "Chief Webster, Lieutenant Serrano, please stand by for entry authorization." "You smell like a donkey's ass," Webster said, noting the dirt and salty sweat stains on Serrano's uniform. "I can't be worse than you," was her retort. The door on the other side of the chamber echoed a metallic click. Serrano pushed through and stormed ahead to the biometric scanning station with Webster in pursuit. "It may be an old, stuffy office, but Intervention HQ does have a shower," Webster consoled. "As long as it has a hose, sir, we'll take care of you." Cute. After the scan and an elevator, the pair found themselves in an open room with multiple armed guards. It was completely empty save for another two-way mirror, going the length of the hallway, and another elevator at the far end. There was also a small folding card table set up in the middle with 2 boxes upon it. Webster and Serrano walked up to a box each and inserted their temporary pass cards, formerly white, now turning pink on their way to the defunct red. The boxes clicked open, and each contained a small brass key. The threshold just before the elevator was a line that ran wall to wall. The sleek pseudo-marble tiling of the new facility here gave way to peeling, yellowed floor material made of some plastic or other, with a few holes revealing moldy concrete. "Don't lose your key," Webster explained. "Every door down there is locked, and uses an analog system to record who opens it." "I remember." "What you don't remember is the mountain of paperwork required to get someone out if they lose their key. Imagine being stuck in the supply closet for a month." This last elevator was bumpy. Webster always wondered whether the old thing had always been this way, or whether it had become this way due to wear and tear. If the cables snapped, was there a backup braking system? Who was even authorized to come repair it? From the smell and look of the carpet, Webster imagined people who might have died, trapped in here, pulled out as old rotted mummies. The kind of incident that would never be officially recorded. That was the shed. A big ball of secrets that were kept because they were forgotten. A black hole for naughtiness that would never offend the world, because even God wouldn't see, and if he did, certainly wouldn't remember it. The second the elevator doors opened, Barnes was waiting for them. He was average height, with a decent bald spot and lots of gray. Part Hawaiian, occasionally proud of it, tinted appropriately in spite of the lack of sun down here. He had just a bit of girth, and most of that he wore above the waist. "Right on time, Chief. Have to thank you for coming in. I know it was an ask." Barnes wasn't a polite person, but for the kind of man he was, he had a palpable lack of arrogance. "Director Barnes," Webster greeted. "What's the deal?" "It's not just that this is our worst case yet. You'd be out in the field still where you belong if that was all. It's politics. There's a big change coming, so first comes the bickering, the bureaucrats. You're a needed part of the debate. I'm sure you understand." He slapped Webster's shoulder. "Director," Serrano began, "what fight is more important than the one out there?" Barnes turned, jamming his key into the door, speaking without bothering to face her. "In your lane, Lieutenant." The door slammed shut, and Serrano already had her key in hand, wielding it like a deadly weapon, ready to give chase. "Cool your shorts, LT. The director needs our shining faces in his corner today. That's all we need to know." "Yeah, sounds like more bullshit," she said, moving her key with coerced patience. "Not BS. If we're lucky, it's new tech." "New toys?" Serrano forced a smile, turning her key with a happy click. "I know this is where the sausage gets made, where this work has been done for generations, but in truth, I'm not sure everyone here would be familiar with the full history of the former surveillance programs that were built in pursuit of public security." The man speaking was bald, certainly dark-skinned, but of unclear national origin. Little else could be discerned in the low lighting. His face was tall and skinny, that showed. He was operating some archaic projection device which mechanically fed small squares of film one at a time into a beam powered by an ancient incandescent bulb. The beam highlighted large flecks of dust, little orbs bringing illumination to the tomb-like facility. The furniture was equally old. One wall featured steel filing cabinets with mechanical combination locks on each. Forgotten, irrelevant, probably faded papers contained within. Who could say whether the combinations were still even known? Knowing the shed, they probably were recorded somewhere in a back room or deep vault. Keys to forgettable, lost secrets kept in overflow storage in a conference room. "Who are you?" someone inquired. The voice was distinctly that of Director Barnes, though it shouted from the darkness. Webster would never mistake it. He and Serrano and a dozen others were made to stand at the room's periphery. They weren't important enough for a chair. Half of the agency's desk jockeys must be present. The man with the projector switch replied, "You know who I am, Director Barnes." "Yes, Doctor Tesfaye. You did introduce yourself. Mark John Tesfaye, specialist in this or that, appointee to the agency, assistant junior undersecretary to whichever department of necessity. Even so, who are you?" Barnes was highly respectful of authority, but in his mind he could perfectly reconcile the clashing distinction between formal and informal power. A job title could matter. In many cases, it did not. Tesfaye held his frame. What will be proposed today is a profound change to national policy. Technologically, the implications are not only poorly understood, the results could be catastrophic. The project is so secretive, so highly compartmentalized, that in truth no party can see the full picture. Let us say there are many parties with their own veiled view of just a few pieces of the puzzle, and they are concerned. I'm here representing all of them. I'm concerned about this proposal. Barnes wasn't satisfied, precisely the opposite. Yet each of them, alone, lacks the full picture. How can they then claim concern over something they cannot fully see? That's why they sent me. So their power, though vast, is fragmented except inasmuch as you, Mark John Tesfaye, doctor of this or that, are capable of exerting influence through the veil of non-disclosure to which you are bound. It is, in principle, a position of incredible power. and in practice might possibly amount to very little. Barnes slapped the table. Well then, you've come as a diffident babysitter, Dr. Tesfaye. Let us see if you can change that perception. What is this lecture you have for us? Webster frowned. This Tesfaye was exactly the sort of person a man like the director probably needed to have, watching over him. Was he up to the task? Tesfaye was experienced enough to ignore conflict for now and proceeded with his prepared speech. Surveillance. An age-old, even ancient practice. Sprung of what we call intelligence, slides past, there were sketches and woodprints of medieval, Roman, even industrial age espionage. Tesfaye continued, intelligence, the acquisition of knowledge, granting its holder the ability to act. War, in which one side possesses a greater ability to act than the other, thereby constraining the enemy into an unfavorable position. It is natural, therefore, for any state to seek information about its rivals and enemies. Equally natural is the collection of information about a state's own subjects. Emperors, princes, and kings had secret police forces, inspector brigades, inquisitions. Is this a concession that the interests of the state and its subjects do not align? Are the people in a rivalry with their rulers? The principle of democracy, that idol of the industrial age, proposed that this natural rivalry could be corrected. With representative, so-called institutions, the public interest would align with that of the state. And yet, even the United States, a republic, chose to build one of history's most impressive systems of public surveillance. It is, of course, the direct predecessor of our current program. Now, colorful images showed stunning terror attacks, bombings, hijackings. Representations of laughably quaint communication technologies showed how the ancients could cast a wide net, peer into the lives of all through their own personal devices. So, what is this surveillance? Its methodologies contravene the constitutional principles of that country. It certainly broke the principles of representative government. Not so, they had claimed. Not so. The surveillance was directed at foreign threats. They claimed. It was not used in criminal prosecution, although there were loopholes which they immediately exploited. They even created the pretense of special courts. Of course, without real accountability, they were secret courts, after all. Finally, less supervised agencies copied the surveillance technologies to use for their own purposes, completely circumventing the law. They spied on the public, and most citizens believed they had nothing to hide. Then, they spied on politicians, people who represented the public and did have things to hide, people whose right to personal privacy was essential for their ability to serve as public representatives. They were blackmailed and bought off, and shadow wars replaced democracy. The 21st century wasn't half over before the pretense of representative government was given up, at least within the halls of power. As before, the people were the enemy. Of whom? Of an apparatus, a network of transnational economic power. Their one imperative was to maintain their position, even at the expense of public wealth. Bailouts and policies which favored the rulers created economic losers. These losers would lash out. So the media was controlled via an ever more sophisticated system of data analysis and tailored presentation of content. The real troublemakers found their ability to buy or sell severely limited, anytime they even thought of committing a crime. For the gentler sort of nonconformist, they were handled by a friendly-faced system of social rehabilitation facilities masquerading as job training centers. We can read plenty of literature from the 20th century which predicted and feared this outcome. Yet, for better or worse, they did not prevent it. Humans became part of an integrated technotronic machine, a society governed by numbers. an automated system of controls with the ability to act greater than any individual or group of individuals. The individual human had been defeated. Today, all those old questions are a moot point. Tesfaye had reached his last image. He produced a second wheel of little slides, which he replaced in the projection unit. But then he declined to click in the first image. "Director Barnes had asked who I am," he said. "Well, now I am prepared to tell you plainly." He paused and looked in what Webster assumed was Barnes's direction. The director quipped, "Do you suppose I've lost my patience, Doctor?" "Tesfaye? By all means, we've deigned to be present. We would like to listen to your full presentation." The quip was ignored, and Tesfaye continued, "I am a professor of mathematical philosophy. Whether you're aware or not, we are minders placed in charge of regulation. We're more like augurs, reading the signs and making fools of ourselves in the process, though we are renowned nonetheless as mystics and prophets. Presently, our profession is chiefly concerned with a question that has become the absolute intersection of all the unanswered mysteries in philosophy, computing, and quantum physics. This is the question of incompleteness in mathematical set theory." An incomprehensible image now flashed on the screen, full of equations and Greek lettering. It looks awful, I know, but the premise is very simple. Math is the language of the universe and describes it almost completely. However, using math, we can prove that there must be more to reality, more outside of the system beyond what we see and observe with our own senses. This probably seems esoteric, bordering on schizophrenic, but if we do not make this concession, then math becomes a broken, contradictory system. Math doesn't work unless we permit it to be partially blind. I know this sounds very abstract, but we have quantum computers the size of continents in the form of the atmospheric drone swarms. When we have physical information processes that drive down past the Planck limit into the quantum realm, this abstract question becomes imminently real. Toward the issue of surveillance, my preface, I'll invoke a general principle in computing. Living systems require unpredictability. In contrast, surveillance as a tool of power strives to eradicate the unpredictable. In my line of work, we would say that such a task is impossible. The harder you lock a system down, the more unpredictable it becomes. Or, perhaps, you will kill the system off entirely. Now the image showed a modern city, with its overlapping transit networks, flying delivery drones, and stacks of public housing. Allow me to skip some history and get to the point. Surveillance has now reached its apotheosis in the resplendent eye technology. The eye, closely linked, probably essentially linked, to the complementary system we call regulation. Regulation is a publicly disclosed technology. It grew out of the many data-driven machine learning systems of the 21st century, and with the diffusion of nanorobotic drones for medical and environmental purposes, we have been able to tie predictive algorithms and scalable, kinetic response together completely. The train schedules adjust to the whims of their users, and yet users themselves receive the gentle nudge. The quickening of the hormonal cycle that bridges the brain's states of sleepiness and alertness. A release of stress hormones to increase anxiety and get someone out the door 3.5 minutes quicker so they will make the train. All of society's systems gently and precisely coordinated. Rainstorms can be sabotaged by the nanorobotic aerosols, or perhaps seeded. Considering the so-called butterfly effect, the predictive algorithms can sometimes control the movement of insects, or even shape a small breeze to command large-scale effects. A well-timed sentimental advertisement on a billboard to catch the eye of a company vice president as he passes in a train to convince him to make a deal. The public is fully aware that there is no escape from the all-seeing eye of the data systems. They do not know about the resplendent eye. As you all know, it is a pinnacle technology of modern society, a world wonder. Many of you may not know remotely how it even works, what it even does. There was the image of an all-seeing eye above a pyramid. The next slides showed the capstone completing, the eye comfortable set within it. Using vague and disturbing features of quantum mechanics, the eye, we believe, allows for real-time sharing of data between what we suppose are divergent quantum realities. Our vast data systems talking to their neighbors in alternate realities. Webster knew that it would anger Barnes's sense of protocol, but he felt compelled to interrupt. Dr. Tesfaye, I'm Chief Webster of Intervention Alpha. We're the arms of the eye, in a manner of speaking, as you probably know. Tesfaye was unfazed by the interruption, but Webster didn't have to try hard to imagine the beams coming from Barnes's eyes. Webster was indulging Tesfaye's purpose and prolonging his discourse. Chief Webster, well met. Yes, your team is an essential part of this conversation. You had a question, I presume? Yes, thanks. We all suspected that the eye works by quantum magic, but either way, I was under the impression it could peer into the future. Your description sounds a bit different. Tesfaye's eyes pointed down, a sign of gratitude which was accompanied by a pause. Webster had indeed played into Tesfaye's hands. So be it. Yes, that's a correct impression, Chief. This is how the eye is understood in lay terms, and how it is sometimes briefed to other intervention teams. Regulation being predictive by thoroughly integrating past data, the eye by integrating future data as well. It is not really a very accurate portrayal of the technology, and this sort of misunderstanding is why I am here. The resplendent eye does not see the future. It sees many possible, very real, but different presents, and compares the variations to derive patterns that are otherwise mathematically paradoxical. If, Tesfaye raised his voice, if we could see the future, there would be no terrorist attacks. There would be no need for intervention. The resplendent eye sees the unseen and brings clarity to what is unclear. It cannot see everything. This limitation is a function of the incompleteness problem of mathematics. I have reviewed the case files of this agency. The net of intervention has widened over time. Huge nuclear generators installed in this very facility for more power, to see farther. We even speculate something mad, which really ought to have been perfectly obvious. When we tap into these alien data streams, wouldn't it obviously be the case that these other versions of ourselves, these ghosts, would tap into ours? That the eye's own intelligence would attune our signals and enhance the mutual efficiency of all systems across time and reality? Our data is filling in their blind spots, as they do for us. We see signs of this in the data logs. By the very nature of the mathematical paradox this technology is trying to overcome, we have no knowledge of how the eye has adapted to share this data. Its algorithms are a black box. Its process of decision-making is distributed out among an unreachable ether. The eye does help us identify chaos incidents impossible for regulation's algorithms to predict, the random ones. Yet, the more the eye opens, the more catastrophic our chaos events, these random acts of pure terror, have become. I began with a discussion of the ancient times. They used to have personality profiles, criminal and terrorist profiles. Criminals fell under a type. No special algorithms or stochastic analysis was needed to identify them. Pure human intuition could spy them from a mile away. How far removed we are from that past. With all our regulation and vision, the chaos creeps in stronger than ever. We have met the limit of what is mathematically and existentially possible. We are learning the lesson that in spite of our best efforts, we will never, not ever, truly see the future. Barnes didn't wait for Tesfaye to catch his breath. "We don't have to see the future," he barked. "Turn the lights on, would you? I've had enough of the theatrics. Let's get to the point." Everyone blinked as the harsh, ancient fluorescence blinked on. Nanorobotics were deactivated before entry to the shed. No one was completely used to the eyeball's natural full cycle of adjusting from dark to light. Barnes was visibly struggling, forcing his eyes to remain open as he spat. "We don't have to see the future. There's a new technology. That's why, Doctor. Tesfaye is here. That's what he was talking about at the beginning. Spooky tech, combined from a dozen workshops. Maybe 2 people alive who half understand how it all works. Makes the eye look like a circus trick. Dr. Tesfaye, would you care to explain, or shall I?" "Director, it will be a privilege," he began. Webster knew the doctor would have wanted to present all this differently, continue with his lecture, and continue to build context. But he acceded to Barnes's frame of authority for now. "It's called X. Simply X. I couldn't begin to tell you how it works. In layman's terms, X is fed information by resplendent eye. By comparing and contrasting the present of different realities, those with or without chaos events, X proceeds to delete whatever represents the source of a problem." "What do you mean, delete?" Webster spoke up almost immediately. "He means," Barnes filled in, "it waits for the bad futures to become bad presents, then simply deletes them so they don't exist." "I know, that doesn't answer your question. The tech is hardly understood, so any theory about it is entirely philosophical. The practical answer, I find, is the simplest. Think about what intervention does. We intervene. We arrive at the moment of consequence and block the bad future from coming into existence by our action. X does the same, only invisibly, suddenly, at the precise moment of need. To answer your question more thoroughly, Chief Webster, the director continued, we speculate that X might work through a number of different modalities. It's well integrated into regulation, and it has what you might call the kill authority. Resplendent eye represents its legal warrant, instantaneous proof of guilt, with instantaneous response. So will X, as a consequence of the structure of the machine learning pattern, cause a culprit's heart to suddenly stop? Or will the nanorobotic drones dissolve the man's tissues into dust? Barnes smiled appreciatively, practically anticipating Webster's interruption. I don't get it, Director, the chief asked. The nanos can't kill. It's the base of their programming, isn't it? Barnes nodded. His eyes moved over to Tesfaye, who offered a response. As much as the director might take pleasure in saying that we secretly built in a back door around the safeguards, that's not true. Any remote chance that nanos could kill would have led to disaster simply due to the scale of regulation. No, they can't kill. X is special, the director oversimplified. The way X works mathematically, it's somehow prior to regulation's algorithmic hierarchy, antecedent to the safeguards. The best way I can describe it is that regulation only applies to time and space, that resplendent eye works a bit beyond that, and X operates through the eye. Of course, most of the technicals are classified, so I'm guessing at best. Barnes followed. Another theory says that X could certainly integrate with the eye's synchronization with alternate quantum realities. The exact nature of quantum universe branching isn't fully understood. Would cross-communication, mutual observation, and a broad ability to act in two universes lead to a collapsed waveform in which formerly differentiated universes essentially merge? That is, will X be deleting, almost literally, an entire future before it begins? That's how it gets around the restrictions. And on top of that, that's how it defeats Tesfaye's little mathematical paradox. Under our feet is an enormous containment chamber. One of the many things that X does, as it operates, is generate a quantum singularity. A black hole, Tesfaye corrected, suddenly pale in the face. I was not previously aware of this technical feature. Barnes quipped, "Now you are. This meeting and its purposes are your new need to know." Webster didn't wait for their banter to continue. He was frank. "I don't like it, Director." "That's why you had to be here, Webster. Your voice counts on this," Barnes replied, adding, "Think of it like I said. It's what we already do, just a bit more instantaneous." Tesfaye admitted, "The director's philosophical conclusion might not be far from the truth. My concern is that, in quantum physics, what you measure, you change. So if we assume X will do something, we will live with the change, but we may never be able to know that it has happened. We can use this tool, but lose our ability to evaluate its dangers, let alone its efficacy. As they say, those who walk the Tao do not see the Tao." None of this is helped by all the layers of secrecy and classification. All for the best, in any event. Society would surely break if the public mind was made anxious about regulation's effectiveness. Our system depends on a thing the champions of democracy never considered: people content with their own slavery. Still, what if the I is somehow exacerbating crisis? What if X introduces change that makes it worse? It's risky. Just look at what happened today. What if we start seeing more of that? Barnes added, "The tragedy experienced earlier today wasn't caused by unpredictability. It was a problem of speed and precision." Serrano, no longer stifled by boredom, growled. "Not," the director assured, "through the fault, necessarily, of our agents. There are simply limits of time and space, of what human activity can accomplish. X beats those limits. We have a plan to implement X. The machinery is already installed." "But," Tesfaye interjected, getting to the nitty-gritty, "there is so much which is uncertain about it. Those I represent would like to hold back for a bit. Think more carefully before we take the plunge. This is all so classified that this meeting may be only the third or fourth time experts have gathered together to even discuss the whole picture." Barnes tilted his head, softly groaning. He said, "We can wait until all Earth is ruin." What Dr. Tesfaye is less appreciative of is the sense of urgency with which we in this organization are very familiar. The worst madman we have ever encountered is on the loose, and we'll be at our limit fighting him. But now we have X. So, let the thinkers consider the philosophy of it. Take a little time to stew it over. Meanwhile, us doers will be busy in our fight. We make the world, not with our words, but with our hands. "Chief," he barked, "thank you for making it in time to witness this bureaucratic intervention. I'm sure you have absorbed the context by now. We'll be asking you for your own thoughts later. First, we'd like to follow up with a formal debrief concerning today's events out in the field. However, you've earned a snack break and a hot shower at that. What about 0200 for the regroup?" A few affirmative nods met the director's query. "See you then."
Nation.